Hello, everybody. My name is Ray Altman. I'm sorry I'm not with you today, but I want you to know I'm praying for you. I've been thinking about you and your church. Maybe you've already heard this today, but I believe this is a moment in the history of the church of tremendous opportunity and hope like we've never seen before. Obviously, that has come at the cost of tremendous upheaval and loss as well. But this, I want to encourage you, is not a new thing. It's a hard thing. It's something that I think most of us would not choose to go through, deep change that is, but it is something that has happened throughout the history of the church and of God's people. And it was happening during the time of Jesus's ministry. I'm a part of the New Wineskin Initiative, and we get our name from a story that Jesus tells. Here it's in Matthew chapter 9, verse 17. Jesus says, "Neither do people pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved." Jesus here was being asked by the religious leaders, what was he teaching? What was he doing? Things were new and they were different, and they challenged the establishment. And Jesus's point, in large part, is that God is always doing new things. And part of this is a matter of fact, friends. Listen, wineskins get old. Wineskins were the container of what was the wine, the valuable thing, the nourishing, joyful, good wine that God makes. And throughout history, there are different wineskins, new wineskins that become old wineskins and then can no longer be used for the new wine. And new wine, old wine, new wineskins, old wineskins, all the work of God, all filled with grace, all used for a purpose. And yet we come in times of transition when the old wineskins, which we'll call almost everything we do in traditional church, can't hold everything that God is doing that's new, the new wine. And so you got to have new wineskins to hold new wine. That doesn't mean you throw out the old wineskins. It certainly doesn't mean you throw out the old wine, which in a different gospel, Jesus says the old wine is better, right? The stuff that is aged and really gotten good. But if you want new wine and you want to continue to have wine down the road, you have to have new wineskins. So I'm an advocate for both old wineskins and new wineskins, old wine and new wine. We need them both. That's why I'm talking to you today. So all that being said, you don't need to completely stop doing old wineskin stuff, traditional things on Sunday morning, your programs, ministries, and things. But there may be some of those things that you can't do anymore. That you don't have the bandwidth or the finances to do. And what I want to encourage you in is there is new wineskins. There's new things to do. And that those things, that new wine isn't in the church. The church is the old wineskins as we know it. I'm going to put it in quotes. It's in the world, and it's among new people and new places with new ministries doing new things. And we have to be a part of that if we're going to be a part of living into what God is doing in the future. Real quick story about the company called Victorinox. Victorinox is the company that makes Swiss Army knives. And at 9/11, it became illegal to bring your Swiss Army knife or any other handheld knife onto a plane. In fact, airlines used to sell Swiss Army knives. You'd get them at airports and then take them on the plane with you. That ended. And in overnight, 40% of the profits and revenue was lost by Victorinox, this company, because they couldn't sell these knives anymore. And they did something amazing. Number one, they loaned out their employees. They fired no one. Instead, they allowed their employees to go work in different places with different companies, knowing that they would come back to be a part of the family when they could. But number two, what they did is they shifted their focus. They still made knives, but they could no longer have that be all of their eggs in one basket, right? And so you might know this, that's when they started making luggage. Have you ever seen luggage that has the white cross on the red block, right? Swiss, I don't know what it's called, but like Swiss luggage. And they became a big deal. And so the very thing, airlines and flight and travel, air travel, became a way that they expanded their work and they shifted. Friends, this is where we are as the church. This is what New Wineskins is about is you are in a moment when maybe 40% of what had been working won't work anymore. And you don't want to lose all of your people, but you know you can't put all those eggs in that basket anymore. And so I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about ways that we can train one another, work together to start doing the new wineskins, to start building luggage instead of just Swiss Army knives. I hope you're following me with this analogy and that it resonates somewhat with your current reality. Again, the good news is it's possible. The good news is it's not all your fault. The good news is that God is actually with us in the midst of this change and that God goes before us. God has not abandoned or forsaken us. Rather, God is saying, you can also do new wineskins. You can also shift your marketing strategy. You can also do things a new way. It's a both and situation, but it might mean major adjustments and where we spend our time and how we train our people. So that's my introduction a little bit to who I am and New Wineskins. Actually, I didn't introduce myself. I'll close with that. I started ministry in the local church about 15 years ago, and I've always had a sense that God was calling me to the neighborhood. And when I was in Leander, Texas, as pastor of Leander United Methodist Church, I asked my church, I actually asked the leadership if I could spend time as their pastor in my neighborhood, if that could be part of my ministry. And they said yes. They understood, I think like most churches do, that part of the pastor's job is to be the pastor in their community, in their neighborhood. And so I started spending time doing that. We were actually able eventually to hire people and have more volunteer folks at the church cover some of the in-house stuff that I used to do so that I could do more time and energy in my neighborhood. And what happened is as I got to know neighbors and as I started kind of being a pastor in the neighborhood, I discovered that God was just everywhere, that basically new wine, God was making new wine, and that this new wine didn't have a wineskin to go into. And so I started doing gatherings at my house, gatherings at the park to kind of gather this new wine of people, relationships, giftedness, spiritual movement. And then I started training people in my church at Leander to do this in their community. So we had several different community-based, neighborhood-based small groups that started. And that's about the time when I realized God was calling me to this full time. And that meant that I couldn't be a pastor at the same time. So I've been blessed by our bishop and by our conference to have this appointment. It's a new church start appointment. And what that looks like now, I've moved from Leander since then. And I have a dinner church that meets at my house that's made up of neighbors, people in my community. We gather together and have dinner together. We have several different families that weren't at church before we started meeting. And we probably between our families have like 18 to 25 kids and youth running around. And we're trying to figure out how to be a youth church and a children's church in the neighborhood. But I also have an online church that's weekly, started in COVID, and it's still going. And this online community is amazing. It's all people who are trying to live out their faith in their neighborhoods and their communities. And so we encourage each other, we worship together, we train one another to be basically neighborhood missionaries, to be disciples discovering the presence of God in our neighborhood and joining in the work that God is doing. And so that's who I am. That's what I do. And hopefully my story in itself is an invitation to you. It's permission for you, and maybe begins to help you wonder what might be possible. So yeah, here's the introductory video, and then I'll do one more video that after the We Can game that tells you a little bit more about what I'd like to offer you in the weeks and months ahead. So next is the We Can game, an experiment that you're going to do right now. Follow that video next.